from the top rope, here comes Brad and Robbie. We are back, episode number 17. I don't know why I just suddenly, I felt like grabbing the mic this time and doing the, we're here in the Thunderdome.
It's one of those weeks, though, I think. So it does feel like the Thunderdome over here this week. It's been crazy, but all good things. But I'm happy to get back to a normal episode of In the Bag. I got to go out and throw some discs this week, so going to have some recommendations, going to have some giveaways. Thanks to everybody for being patient over the last couple weeks. And, today we're going to talk about the most painful part in my bag, which is the fairway driver slot. And I'm so happy that we talked about these because I'm looking for this exact disc. So this helped me just as much as our guest Kim today.
Awesome. Yeah, fairways hold a special place in my heart because for some reason when I get to the big distance drivers with where my form's at right now, even for me personally, I prefer if I can make a fairway driver work as my farthest flying disc. So I love talking fairways. If you're a fairway lover as well, let us know in the comments below. Would love to hear what your go-to fairway is right now. But we have an amazing guest lined up, our first female guest, and very excited for Kim to come on. She is a great human being. And why don't we just jump right in and chat?
Sounds good. Let's bring her in.
Welcome to In the Bag. Kim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Hey, living the dream. We were just talking. It's a little bit of a crazy week on our end, but we're happy to be here. We're talking disc golf, talking discs. It really can't be a terrible week when that's happening, right?
That's
exactly.
True.
Awesome. Well, Kim, we want to make sure you are our first female guest, so thank you so much. History being made right here. So just a deep apology to, honestly, our entire viewing audience that it's taken us 17 episodes to get a female on here. But let this be not an oddity, but a future trend.
I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And we want our guests or our listeners to get to know you a little bit. So we got a couple questions that we ask for them to get to know your game. And we'll start with, how long have you been playing?
So end of August, September will be my about 2-year mark of playing disc golf. So
awesome.
Around COVID time. I was one of the kind of the COVID pickups.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And you're a school teacher.
I am a school teacher. I'm actually in my classroom right now.
Okay, come on. So it was picked it up around when the school year was starting in COVID?
Yes. Things were shutting down, and I loved hiking and being outdoors, and it just fit. And then I met the gals community here in Atlanta, and then disc golf just became a thing. I think like everybody else that, and it catches fire. It's an awesome sport. So
Come on. So about 2 years, let's talk distance and some throwing numbers. When you're looking at your backhand distance form, what's your controlled golf shot distance?
Controlled, I'd say about 280 to 300. And then, in the open fairway, can get about 360, if I hit it right. So, but controlled, I'd say about 280 to 300. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. And then if we go forehand on the darker side of the equation for some, what are we talking forehand distance?
That's just dependent on the day. So I could throw sometimes about 150 and into the ground, and then I have that turnover problem. And then other times, if I can hit it right, I can get it to about 280, 300 as well. But that's, maybe once or twice in a blue moon, when I actually attempt it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like doubles partners. All right, cool. You give me the green light.
There we go.
Here we
light.
go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Nice. Brad, your forehand has come a long way even in just this podcast alone. Are you remembering the days of that range?
Yeah, we went out and played our weekly on last Thursday because of rain, and I actually found myself several times picking up a disc I'm going to forehand without thinking of it and having some confidence, actually.
There you go.
It's wild. Hey, that flip-up thrasher is a beautiful thing. That's all I got to say.
That's awesome.
Come on.
Yeah, that's something I'm trying to work on, too, kind of the flip-up. Yeah.
Hey, you got that turn. Take the turn out a couple times to try to forehand it. I like the turn as well. So.
Yeah, I'll try that.
Brad, I think one of the low-key parts of this is that Brad, in just a couple months, has become very fluent in disc talk.
That's
just
true.
Because of
That's awesome.
I'm making him try all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of discs, yeah. I would love to do that. My bank account's not too happy though.
That's fair. That's fair.
I do
It
have an
definitely
advantage
helps.
there. If
Yeah,
I'm being
you
fair.
do.
So, okay, awesome. Well, love that for the distance part of the game. Let's talk putting.
Okay.
We're on the putting green. We give you a stack of 10 of your putters, and we have you lined up at 15 feet, another stack of 10 at 25, and another stack at 40. How many are we making from each?
So that's dependent on if it's tournament time or if it's just casual play. But I'd
Okay.
say, and that's something that I've really worked on, I'd say within the last 3 to 6 months, is really focusing on my putting because it was losing me a lot of strokes. So I'd say about 15 feet. I mean, it could be about 8 to 10, 9 to 10, 100%, depending on if I have the flow state, the easy motion. 25 feet, I'd say about 7 out of 10. And then you said 40 feet. That's one thing I've been working on also is the straddle step putt. And I'd say maybe 2, 3 out of 10, maybe 4 out of 10 if I'm really hitting the release point properly. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you feel like with that straddle stepper, even if you're not making it, like you're drawing metal a lot of the time?
Yeah, I'm drawing metal. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's usually just short.
Okay.
Either just short or hitting metal. Yeah, the basket. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, last question then. What would you say is the strongest part of your game?
I think the strongest part of my game is ironically also the weakest point of my game, which is my mental game. Well, and it's not, I guess, not mental game, more of mental fortitude. When I'm not good at something, I like to really work at it and give 100%. So my work ethic, I think, is up there, but it's also my weakest when it comes to applying pressure on myself. I mean, even in a casual round, I'll apply some pressure. It's like, why am I doing that to myself? I don't need to. But I think it's kind of always been a thing when it comes to school and other sports and just my personality, I guess.
Okay,
So,
that's awesome.
but yeah.
What other sports did you like? What other sports background do you have?
So I played basketball pretty much all my life. And then I ended up picking up soccer in sophomore year to just extra train for basketball. And then I ended up going to play soccer in college. And then I played softball junior and senior year as well. So, but that was just kind of a extra, just get in there, work out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So competition, not unfamiliar for sure.
No.
That's
well,
awesome.
but the biggest difference I think is the whole team versus individual aspect. So, playing like golf or tennis or swimming even those in high school, you have kind of a sport or a team atmosphere, but it's still very much individual based. Whereas, soccer and basketball, it's very team oriented. So, yeah.
That's fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
it totally makes sense. The
Yeah.
bad day, at least a teammate can pick you up.
Right.
Bad day on the putting green. The people you're playing with are probably
Right.
excited that you had a bad day on the putting green. That's
Yeah.
totally fair. Well, speaking of putting green, let's dive into the bag.
Okay.
We will throw that up there, and I want to start with putters. So you putt with Pures,
Yes.
and then you have 4 throwing putters in your bag.
Yes.
Okay,
And I'm
you got-
trying to consolidate, but it's trying to find the right one.
Okay, so what putter would you say is most likely, which one's on the cut line right now?
I don't know, honestly. I really don't know. Because I use them for all different scenarios. Possibly the Berg, if I could find the Dillo. Because I know the Berg in wind is great. I know what it's going to do. It's kind of like my Rhino that I used to have minus the distance. But I like that. So honestly, I really couldn't tell you until because I just put the Dillo on my bag. One of my friends, Tanya, just gave it to me about a few days ago. So, but I've used it before, and so we'll see.
Yeah. I think that's a very astute observation. I did a video. Unfortunately, it won't be airing on his channel because some of the footage got lost. But we did a comparison between the Berg, the Armadillo, and the Polecat.
Okay.
And I found that the Dillo was like a perfect hybrid between the two. Because the Berg, to me, and you can tell me if this is how it flies for you, I think a lot of people try to describe the Berg as this like super straight point and click putter. And I feel like the Berg has some sneaky stability to it.
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah, definitely. Which I appreciate when it comes to certain winds. But that is exactly, most people think it's just a very straight, but that's the Dillo for me. But the Berg has kind of like a slight hyzer when thrown flat, even hard. When I throw it hard, it goes straight, but it has, a bit of a kind of a hyzer fade. Now it will go on any line that you put it on. If I put it on Annie, it does hold that Annie line really nicely. But yeah.
I would be curious in terms of, like you said, either finding a Dillo in the more premium plastic. I'm not as familiar with Lone Star's name, so haters come at me in the comments. It's fine. But I think it's Bravo might be the name of it, or maybe that's the baseline. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the one that I have is their Glow, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's Alpha, Bravo, Glow, and then there are two other plastics that are escaping me. I just know because we just got a wholesale account with Lone Star this week, so we're going to have a lot more in warehouse here. So, and I'm really excited to throw the Armadillo out of any disc that we're getting in.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. There's something I love about just a flat disc, a straight disc that's just not going to go anywhere.
Right.
And I'm just thinking of the shot now, right? You have a basket, and then there's a sloping green on the backside, and you just want something to hit and dig in the dirt and not go anywhere. Yeah. And again, it's like in a utility disc, the same reason I have like a Raptorius or a Captain's Raptor in my bag. It's just straight utility for like a thumber or get out of jail. That's like, I think, the putter version of that in my mind, without the stability, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Dillo, and so I threw I think two different plastics of the Dillo, and there was definitely a stability difference in that premium plastic. So I think that, to me, another thing you could replace the Berg with is if you're throwing that pig, the pig, if you get a really beat in one, flies very similar in terms of like, I have a super beat in pig, and to me, it does exactly what a Berg does. You can jam on it, and it's not like it's going to just glide forever past the basket. So if the Berg makes sense to me to be that one on the cut. So I would definitely investigate.
Look in that. Okay. I actually bought another, not the Wysocki pig. I bought a regular R Pro pig, trying to do exactly what you just said. So
Amen.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah.
The best advice, slightly, this is not, I literally forgot that you had a pig in your bag when I wore this shirt today. But I, like an R Pro play, I would say go 3 rounds and just play with that R Pro pig, and you will notice the stability difference by the end of that on that base R Pro instantly. So I think it 100%, they beat in super fast. It's why I love R Pro plastic. Right. Because eventually it's going to be so beat in that it's not going to get any flippier, but it'll still have that little tick of stability that you're looking for in the Berg. So that would be my suggestion there. Let's move on to mids. We got 5 mids in the bag, 5 molds. Yeah. So Croc totally makes sense. Can imagine that's just like utility,
it's more
super
of a utility.
overstable.
Yes, more of a utility, yeah.
Okay. Walk me through the difference between the Rock 3 and the Reactor.
Okay, so my Rock 3, especially right now, is a lot more stable than the Reactor. The Reactor, what I had planned on was the Reactor replacing my Rock 3 by getting a more stable Reactor. Right now, what I'm trying to do is beat in this Reactor that I have now, which is the Cosmic Neutron, and beat that in, and then replace with a more overstable Reactor plastic. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 100%. As someone who had an all-in of a bag and was replacing
Yeah.
rocks,
Yeah.
so I had a Rock 3, I had a Champ Rock 3, and then I had a Metal Flake Champ Rock 3, and those were my like stable, straight, reliable finish, and then definitely going to finish Wind Fighter a little bit. That's what that
Right.
like super overstable, and I'm guessing that sounds like what your Rock 3 currently does. Is
Yes,
like,
it's for the wind, the more open fairways. Yeah.
yeah. So I would suggest the Reactor. Check out an
Okay.
Eclipse Reactor.
Eclipse. Okay, that's the Lane King one, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Yeah.
that glow plastic.
Glow plastic. Yeah.
There, when you throw gyro glow plastic, first off, if you're a glow fan at all,
Yeah.
it is unreal.
Okay.
Like, I'm sure, Brad,
it's
you can
no
see it
joke.
at the warehouse. Like, when you shut the lights off in the warehouse, like that MVP section is just.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep, and I throw a glow MV too, and it's a little bit of sun, and that thing glows like no other.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would definitely check out a glow reactor.
Okay.
It's honestly, it's the perfect compliment. When I found the reactor, and then honestly, when I went to Innova, I'd already like tasted the joy of those two reactors, and I was just heartbroken the whole time I was with Innova because I was
Right.
like, there's just not another mold that does
Mold,
this, where you have
yeah.
like the straight and then the straight with a way more overstability that that reactor does.
The reactor does. Okay. Awesome.
The Elaine. So right there, boom, we can
boom,
get one of those
yeah,
molds out of
yep.
the bag
All right.
instantaneously.
And
Perfect.
I'm gonna throw a wrench in there completely. Have you thrown
Oh.
the Bobcat?
I have not.
Okay.
Bobcat.
Yep.
Okay.
From Mint.
Mint.
So
Mint. Okay. Yeah, I actually haven't tried any of Mint's discs out. So
I think that might take care of that Rock 3 croc range for you. It's a little
Okay.
bit more overstable. And you know me, Robbie, I've been struggling finding a overstable mid-range.
Yeah.
And I think that might maybe take the Rock and 3 and the croc
And
out
the
for
croc
you.
out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it would fit right in that pocket for you. I threw it today during field testing, Robbie. That's why it's on the top of my mind. So
Okay.
Did you
just
throw
as
the taco cat? Did you throw the taco cat or a bobcat?
just a Bobcat.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Okay.
a Bobcat. So, yeah, give that. It's in the Sublime plastic. That's the one I threw.
Sublime?
Pretty,
Okay.
pretty overstable. Will hold like a flex line, but
Okay.
not so overstable you can't throw it.
throw it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I feel like my croc, does right now. But okay, I'll definitely
Yeah.
take a look at
So,
that.
Bobcat, super good. I definitely
Okay.
agree. And the plastic feels unreal. If you're a
Unreal.
gyro fan, it's the same
Uh-huh.
plastic.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
That's why I
Wow.
didn't bring it up.
Okay, awesome.
So then on the other side, you've got an uplink and an origin.
Yes.
What plastic is your origin in?
So the Origin, I have two, but the one that I bag currently is their Neo, the Neo plastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So-
So Brad, big uplink fan. Probably,
Big
I
uplink
think
guy.
that's the first disc that we got you to fall in love with on the podcast.
It's the disc that changed my bag from a one manufacturer bag to an
Your
open bag.
the podcast is actually why I bought an uplink. It replaced my soul.
You hear that, MVP?
yeah.
You hear that?
Yeah, we're doing it. Where's the sponsorship, MVP? Come on with it.
Yeah.
We're gyro guys. So,
Yeah.
no, that's fantastic. The only thing that I was going to recommend as an alternative to that would be the Origin. If you ever try it in the Exo Soft,
Okay.
a lot of people, that's like their preferred. I'll say this, Kim. We are
Is it-
oddities in that we throw Neo Origins because I bag
Okay.
one as well.
Okay.
Lots of people love the Exo Soft.
Is
Origin.
that their is it more like their base pack? Because I have a red one that might be an Exo Soft, but I haven't thrown it very much because the Neo works for me. So
Yeah.
it does what I need it to do.
It is their base plastic.
Yeah.
It's like they've got two base plastics. They've got the Exo, which is base, and then they have Geo, which
Okay.
is also base. Literally can't tell you the difference. I just know that Geo comes in starter packs
Okay.
and Exo comes in a variety of, it's very similar to like your Latitude 64, how they have like what is it? It's not retro. Like BT medium, BT hard. No, that's
Okay.
West Side. But like,
Retro, is that what you're thinking of?
yeah, I can't, I'm so blanking on what Latitude's version of that plastic is. I know that there's like classic blend if you're dynamic.
Is
BT.
it Origio or Origio?
It might
Am I
be.
saying that right?
It might be. But anyways, so it's like it is their base plastic. It comes in a
Okay.
variety, which makes sense because it's also made in Dynamics Factory. So
okay. I think
the same plastic.
It might be the Exo Soft. I think the other one that I don't bag, but I have it. Yeah.
And you probably have noticed this. The Origin says that it's like a -1/1.
Right.
But I don't feel like that's true at all.
No, it's a little bit more flippier.
Yeah, the Exo Soft takes it to a whole nother level.
Yes, I think that's why I took it out of my bag.
So I would just, if you love your Origin, I would test your uplink alongside. Now that you got familiar with the uplink, I would test it alongside that Exo Soft.
Okay.
Because for me, it sounds like we could end up with a very similar mid-range setup because I have a Neo Origin and I have the Exo. I have a Geo Origin in my bag.
Okay.
Because they are like the Geo. For me, with my arm speed, I'm throwing it on pretty extreme hyzer, and it's getting all the way up to flat and then turning a little bit.
Okay.
But I love that for like a tunnel shot.
Right.
You're playing at OP, Little Mulberry, anything like that, where you've got to hit the tight lines.
Tight lines, right.
That is money. It's same vibe as an uplink, just as an alternative if we're trying to go for like, I know you said you wanted to try to minimize molds.
Yeah.
If you're loving an Origin, the base plastic Origins
Okay.
work wonders.
All right, let's talk about today's sponsor, Aura. Hey, Robbie, did you know that identity theft is the fastest growing crime in America right now?
I did not.
So apparently a new victim is victimized every 14 seconds, if that's a word.
Yeah. Wow.
I personally haven't been affected. Have you, Robbie?
I have not.
Okay, well, we're the lucky few. I think over half the guys here at Foundation shared a story on their podcast about, I know Trevor had his eBay account password and everything stolen, and someone bought a bunch of shoes. I know Silas had an issue.
Wow.
It happens. It happens a lot. I know it's happened to people in my family. So, we could be next, but thankfully not, because I've signed up with Aura. Robbie's signing up with Aura, and that's why we're excited to partner with them today.
Aura is an identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software, all combined into one easy-to-use app. You might have one of those services already, but if you don't have all of the tools, it's like locking the front door but leaving the back door wide open. Those who have already had their identity stolen are often shocked when it happens again. Imagine trying to log into your email account one day only to see the password had changed hours ago. And then you start getting notifications of activity from your bank, your credit cards, your crypto accounts, and all the other fancy things you got going on the internet. That's a scary and unfortunately real reality for too many people. Thankfully,
Yes.
Aura monitors the dark web for your emails, passwords, and social security numbers and sends alerts fast right to your phone and email.
Yeah, it was like really scary, and I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I signed it up. We're all using this now to monitor our, passwords, social security numbers, things like that. And I logged in. It's like, hey, 3 alerts, and I found 2 of mine and one of my wife's passwords on the dark web. I also found that all of our information was with all these different data selling firms, which is kind of crazy. So Aura monitors all of that for you, which is great. So thankfully I did that, because I would just never know. And then, hey, like you said, one day my bank account passwords changed and there's no money in there. So thanks, Aura, for the heads up there. Aura also gives you a near real-time alert on suspicious credit inquiries. If someone was opening a loan or credit card in your name, you're going to know, because Aura is going to tell you. Aura's VPN allows you to stay anonymous online and keep your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. Protect your family and yourself. Like I said, you can put all your family members' information in there, and protect your identity theft at aura.com/foundation disc golf, link below in the description. Also, if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with a link below, and see how yourself and others can be saved and keep your personal information off the dark web. And if you sign up, let me know in the comments below. And if your personal information was compromised, don't worry. Aura's there to help, and you won't regret checking and finding out, so you can do something with it in the future. Thanks, Aura, for the protection. Thanks for letting us know what's going on, and we appreciate it. So, again, aura.com/foundation disc golf in the link below. Gets you a 2-week trial. So check it out. Thanks,
Check
Aura.
it out.
Okay.
And from what I'm seeing, it looks like Geo is just a less premium version of Neo, and it beats in faster. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. I love my Geos. They're just, like I said, they're hard to come by because they're
Right.
only available in starter packs. So you
Okay.
either have to buy a whole starter
Buy a
pack and
starter
get rid of
pack
the
or-
other 2 discs, or find scalpers who are like, here's $25
Yeah.
for a base plastic disc. Da, 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 da. I love Discraft.
Gotta love
or
that.
Discmania.
Yeah.
So good. Sorry, Discraft. I didn't mean to burn you there. So that's mid ranges. I think you're, like I said, moving in the right direction. I really do
Okay.
think that Eclipse Reactor would be a game changer for
Game
you
changer, okay.
instantaneously. I love mine. And then the other beautiful part about MVP is it takes a long time for it to beat in.
Yes,
so
it does. Yeah.
I had a car literally run over my Eclipse Reactor last week, and it's still overstable. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
I think there's a pros and cons to that. Like, it taking. That's why I think I have so many molds in my bag right now is because of I started off with Innova because that was who my friend got me introduced to it. Just here's a Star Destroyer, and so I just went with Innova, and then now I'm trying to incorporate other disc manufacturers. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of Innova, there's a pretty strong presence of Innova when we get to your distance drivers.
yes, yeah,
So, one thing that I love, if you look at your distance drivers, that's where I think you have like a lot of duplicates going. Mm-hmm. But the other struggle is I feel like you have a lot of speed, like a lot of speed options.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through, there's a lot of weight difference, but do you often find it confusing to choose your shots once you start going to distance drivers?
No,
Just because you
that's
have so
probably
many
what's
discs?
that's probably what's most comfortable in my game.
Interesting.
Because the mid range, and I'd say the mid range was the last part of my game, which shouldn't probably have been that, but because you should be throwing putters and mid ranges, as a beginner. I started off throwing a lot faster discs, just not knowing better. And once I did start getting to know better, it was easier to know what those drivers did. And I kind of stuck with it. And, even though I have the turn in there, I have 2 different weights. And the reason for is once I've gotten to the point where I can get it to flip, very easily with, me putting some pop on it. But it's a lighter weight disc. And I feel like with females, and even others with just a slower arm speed, it like the lighter weight disc really helps being able to throw those drivers, and yet still get it to do what it is supposed to do. And I don't really have an issue finding the lines when it comes to those discs because I know them so well. But
Okay. So would you say the reason you have, so like looking at from distance drivers up, because I know even when you submitted your bag, you
Yeah.
kind of had it broken down into fairways, control, and then distance drivers.
Yes.
I kind of, if you end up watching this back on YouTube, you'll see how I broke your chart down. When it gets to an 11 speed for me, I
Yeah.
call that distance driver, and
Okay.
then 10 speed to 7 speed. The Crave's like a weird one because it's 6 speed.
Yeah.
But like, I call that fairways.
Okay.
So I've
And
thrown
it is kind of like
yeah. So I've thrown the
Sorry.
Mystere, the Mamba, the Wave. I've thrown those into the distance driver category. So would you say that like the reason there are 9 distance drivers in the bag isn't because it clogs options for you? You're so familiar with them that
Yeah.
losing one of those would almost make you feel like I'm going to have a shot not covered.
yeah, kind of, yes. Especially in Georgia, because we have so many different type of courses. We have, Sequoia and Little Mulberry and East Roswell, which are a little bit more woodsy and technical, but they're still long. To like Chattahoochee Point or some private ones like Flyboys or OP or that are more fairway. You have more of an open fairway type of shot, and so I feel like that. Yeah, like you just said, the drivers. If I pulled one of them or I took any of them out at this moment without having replacements, yeah, I would feel like I had a gap in my bag.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Okay.
But like the Wraith, for instance, in my bag, I don't think is a typical Wraith.
Okay.
Because I've gotten it's such a lighter weight. It's only at 159, or 158, 159, and it's a G-Star plastic. So it's one of my more woodsy that I can get it to turn over, and get those. But it has that reliable fade back. So that's more of my woodsy disc, whereas some use the Wraith more as like a distance driver, where I use it more as a control driver. But that's only because of how I've beaten it in. So,
okay. So that Wraith being the anomaly, do you have another Wraith to back it up? Like,
I do have another Wraith outside, like, my secondary bag or, in my tub of discs. I do have a Wraith. I think it's at 173, and that thing is a beefcake.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So not a replacement to that Wraith. Like if we lost Wraith, that shot would be gone.
Yes. And that's why I want to consolidate. It's just because if I lost any of those discs in my bag, I'd be upset because they are, molded to perfection for me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I think that's what one big thing that we try to do here on the show is kind of help approach just how you view your bag a little differently. So that way you don't end up with this, like, I'm afraid to play a course that has water because
exactly. Yeah.
This would be terrible. Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to transition, kind of like bridge a gap, Brad, unless you have a question about distance drivers. But I want to transition to, so you mentioned the Wraith, we're talking like a woodsy control driver shot. And we had talked before about you have this Air Saint Pro in your bag that sounds like it fills a similar role to the Wraith.
Yes. Yep. That's exactly what it is.
What's the distance difference, would you say, between the Saint Pro and the Wraith?
I'd say maybe about anywhere from, depending on the throw in it, I'd say about anywhere from 30 to 60 feet, maybe. Okay. Yeah, about 30 to 60 feet, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers the question for me then.
Okay.
Because for me, it was a lot of people, like, fairways are going, we'll say 300 and distance drivers are going 310. In that case, I'd always prefer people to have the fairway driver and just eliminate the Wraith because the Saint Pro's doing it. But 30 to 60 feet is the difference between that's pretty massive. So definitely don't want to move away from that. I would go through, and here's how I would do it. If I were you trying to mold minimalize,
right,
I wouldn't take out tons of options, but see what happens so you have the wave and the Mystere. So what happens if you play around and you, like, for 2 weeks, you were just like, you know what? The wave's not in the bag.
Right.
And you just leave the wave out. See how that goes. And then switch them. Put the wave back in and put the Mystere in and, like, slowly trickle it out.
And that's actually what I have been doing. The wave goes in and out of my bag. And I think it's because I'm trying to decide on the wave and the Mystere. And right now the Mystere is where I need it to be. But Mysteres sometimes can be hard to find and then sometimes not. And waves are a lot easier to find, especially right now. I feel like everybody owns a wave. And they also, MVP does run with usually lighter discs as well, which I appreciate. So I have done exactly that, kind of going back and forth between the wave and the Mystere. And I have found that I have taken the wave out currently more than the Mystere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I also know that, having bought multiple Mysteres in my life, that the Mystere is a finicky disc to replace as well, just because not only is it hard to find, but it's hard to find two Mystere. I'm sure you can walk into the Foundation warehouse and grab two Mysteres and throw them both, and it's like, that's not the same disc.
Right, and that's kind of why I've tried putting the wave in the bag. It's just not where I need it to be right now.
Totally.
So,
Totally. And I think there's probably options.
I was just saying, I should just write out, because that Mystere is an FT, I'll just put wave on it.
Yeah. I love it. Paint a little black rim. We're good to go.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. Awesome. Well, hey, let's take a moment. Let's talk about fairways a little bit because I know Brad got to go to the field, try some fairways, so I want to make sure we get to hear his thoughts. So as we look on the left side of your fairway chart, it honestly, to me, looks extremely balanced. You've got that overstable utility in a Firebird. You've got the Thunderbird as sort of like I'm guessing, a longer distance shot with some reliable fade. Mm-hmm. And then the St. Pro that you're working through the woods. I love that. I genuinely, St. Pro is so underrated. Fantastic mold.
It is.
Especially in the air plastic. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Love that you're bagging that. Now, once we get to the TL3 and we move over, that's where I start getting some question marks. And I think to me, that's the big hole on the chart. And also where I think we have some overlap and not inconsistency, some overlap and big room for change, we'll call it. So TL3 and the Crave, differences between those.
Honestly, I don't really feel like there is a big difference other than I've just put the Crave in the bag maybe 3 months. And the TL3 I've had from the very get-go. So it's just more of I've had it in my bag for a long time. I know what it does, and I'm trying to implement the Crave in. And I do like the Crave. It's just more newish in the bag, and that confidence that you know that you guys talk about in the podcast, it's just not 100% there yet. I think the more I bag it, the more I throw it, it can get to that point. Just right now, it's just not there. So,
Totally. Yeah. The Crave, generally neutral numbers. I think if you look at like flight numbers compared to your Pure, let's say, you would think it would be super, like, because the Pure can be pretty understable. Right. Do you find that to be true with the Crave, or does it have more like sneaky stability?
It has some pretty sneaky stability, especially. So I'm throwing the Hokum. I'm not sure exactly what plastic that is, but it's the Hokum one, the Sarah Hokum Crave.
Probably the Cosmic Neutron or just
yes.
Neutron.
Yeah. And I believe that is the weight is at 173. And I picked up another Crave. It's an it's a Fission. And that was, I think, at 163. And that's actually more stable than the Hokum. And it's a huge stability difference. I do think I eventually will get that Crave to be. I mean, if I throw it on Annie, it holds the Annie and then it fades out reliably. I do think eventually I could get it there, but like we said, MVP takes quite a while to beat in, so it's just not there yet. Whereas my TL3 is, I mean, if I really put a lot of pop in it, I can get that TL3 to kind of like turn over like slightly and hold, and then kind of have that fade out. So,
okay,
yeah,
that makes total sense to me. That, the Crave. I think the Crave is an amazing disc. I want to go ahead and say that. I feel like we appear very MVP biased here on the show, but I really think the Crave is phenomenal. I think it's just another one of those discs very similar to the Mako 3. Have you gotten to throw a Crave yet, Brad?
No, I haven't. We're having a hard time keeping him in here, so I have not thrown one yet.
That makes sense. So I have had you throw a Mako 3, right?
Yep, don't like it.
That's fair. So the Mako 3 people sell as understable, and it's not.
It's
very
it's
neutral.
not. And I did used to have a Mako 3 in my bag too, and I kind of took it out of my bag. So
absolutely. And the Crave to me is just a longer Mako 3. So I want to make sure that we like sell discs properly as to how they're actually flying versus what we think they should fly, or looking at flight numbers, because
I got all those flight numbers.
Yeah, you've got multiple discs in your bag that if we looked at flight numbers, like the Origin is in the same line as the Pure and the Crave, and we've already talked about it. It's not.
It's not. Yeah.
So where I think the big hole is we go from the Crave all the way over to the Roadrunner. So if the Crave was understable, that would make sense. It would fill this gap. But that's a huge stability difference between okay, I can throw something flat or even a little hyzer and watch it flip up and do some work, versus the Roadrunner that you probably have to put on some pretty steep hyzer in order to get it not to go all the way over.
Yeah, and it depends on the. So I do have two, even though I didn't put it in the bag. I have a Roadrunner at pretty much max weight that I can do that with, where I throw it flat and it will turn over, maybe like I don't know, more like a -2 rather than a -4. And then I have that really flippy, the one that I sent to you. That's my kind of woodsies, like the Wraith, where if I certain angles, whether it's flat or hyzer, it kind of gives me that late finish, late turnover finish versus the initial turn.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially having the two Roadrunners. So that could be an option to consider. Yeah. I had Brad go out and try a couple discs that I think can help bridge this gap. But what I really like about these is that also if we find these in a more stable plastic, it might be able to fight against the Crave and the TL3 to push those out as well. Okay. So we keep that mold mineralization down. So Brad, all right. What did we try?
Let's see.
All right. So today we tried the Z Sting from Discraft.
Okay. That would be my first Discraft disc.
Yeah. 175 to 176. That's the weight on this one.
Okay.
And then I have the Jackalope from Mint Disc in this very cool stamp. It's at 174. So I always talk about the feel first because, I mean, if it doesn't feel great, I'm not going to probably throw it or have the confidence, right?
Right.
One of the biggest reasons I struggle with the fairway slot in general, and if you've listened to the podcast, you know, is like my hands are kind of like thick and like arthritic from drumming my whole life. So like these rims are just not that comfortable, especially when you get into that 7-speed. I will say both of them were fairly comfortable. My hands kind of like didn't know whether to fan grip or like power grip this, but it was still not uncomfortable to power grip this Sting. The Jackalope, I believe it's an 8-speed, right, Robbie? It's just slightly a bit bigger on the rim, so it was very comfortable to throw. It's a little bit more gummy than the Z plastic, so for what it's worth, if I had to pick a winner in that category from just pick up the disc and feel it, Jackalope is going to win for sure. So let's talk about backhand. So I threw the Sting about 250 on backhand. Again, I'm doing about 85% power. I'm trying to be more controlled with my power and let the disc do the work versus trying to force the disc to do what I want it to do.
Right.
Sting went about 250, Jackalope about 260, so very similar distance-wise. Really, the Jackalope was very sensitive. Like if I was trying to keep it flat, if I gave it a little too much ante, it took the ante line. If I gave it a little too much hyzer, it would do the flip up. And it was very sensitive to my nose angle. So, like, right away I could tell, like, hey, this disc for me and my arm speed is going to be like, hey, whatever I tell it to do, it's going to do it. But if I accidentally slip up, it's not going to be super forgiving, I suppose. Whereas the Sting has a little bit more stability for me. And I could, if I messed up a little bit of the angle or nose angle, it was pretty consistent. It would go very straight. It had a nice glide, and then just a slight finish to the left, slight fade. I mean, it would really finish kind of on that straight line I gave it. Maybe 10 feet to the left is like what kind of fade it was giving me. So even if I messed up on the Jackalope, it didn't like turn and burn or anything, but it was definitely sensitive to what angle I gave it. And
put it on.
If my intention was to throw a flat, straight shot to finish pretty straight in front of me, I'm not going to have the confidence with the Jackalope. The Sting, I would have more confidence with that. Bonus throw, I threw the River also for all of those telling me to throw the River. That's the straightest, most glidey disc I've ever thrown, but that's for another episode. Yeah, I could throw that thing like 290, 300 on a dart straight in front of me, and it just did not want to come out of the air. So for any of you River fans, thanks for suggesting that. Now let's talk about when we get to the hyzer and ante, like backhand throws, that's where these are really going to kind of, it seems like Sting was the winner there for a second on flat backhand if I was having to pick one for me as far as what the disc does. Hyzer and ante really changed my mind. So hyzer backhand, Sting was going about 280 for me, which is pretty decent for me in a fairway. Jackalope went about 295. That was my average. I got a couple over 300 on that hyzer flip line. I mean,
Nice.
I didn't have to put a lot of power on either one of these discs. And what I liked about both of them is they were very slow flip up. So they start
Okay.
off on the hyzer angle and just kind of about halfway through flipped up to flat.
Nice.
The Jackalope just wanted to just keep in the air. Like it really loved that flip line. Whereas the Sting would flip up and then it would start just very gently fade back to the left. The Jackalope kind of just stayed straight for me. Even a couple times finished a little right. So it gave me a little bit of turn at the end. So that's what I really liked. And again, the Jackalope just felt good in my hand, and it just kind of just a beautiful, gentle flip up. And again, the Sting was perfectly fine too. It just actually faded out a tiny bit for me at the end. And really, it's a finger comfort thing. So I felt I've had more confidence on that hyzer angle release with just that better grip, I guess is the best way to say it. And hyzer backhand. Sting only went about 250 for me, and the Jackalope was still going about 280, 290 on an Anheuser line for me. The Sting was a little difficult as far as angle control on the Annie, because if I gave it, there's a definite sweet spot. If I hit the sweet spot, it would do just a nice, left to right finish and land on the ground. 8 out of 10 throws, though, if I didn't give it enough Annie, it was just kind of like that flat throw again. It has enough stability to kind of go straight with a little bit of finish. If I gave it too much Annie, there's like a tipping point where it just wanted to hit on its edge and cut roll for me. Okay. It didn't have like this control at the end that I really wanted. Again, could be just me, probably just me, but I didn't really I didn't feel confident on the angle. Now with the Jackalope, I will say on the Anheuser release, it was just the degree of how far right do I want it to finish. Okay. Not one time did it hit on its edge for me. It landed soft. It had this kind of J looking shape at the end, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how I would describe it.
J shapes.
J shapes. Yeah, right. We talk about S lines, not a J. But yeah, no, it would start out left, just go right, and then kind of flip up a little bit and just land flat. And again, if I gave it a lot of Anheuser, then it's going to go really far right. If not, it's just going to go, remotely turn on me, but never once did it cut roll. Right. So it just kind of gave me some confidence on that. Overall, I think for me, I love my Discraft. I'd have to go with a Jackalope for me and my bag. And I told Robbie this before we started when he showed me your chart. And again, I don't see any of these charts until right before the episode.
Right.
So on purpose. But I was like, hey, this is the same gap that I have in my bag. So I think this recommendation really applies to you, which is really cool. So
awesome.
I think that Jackalope, and again, I feel like I have multiple shots out of the Jackalope, whereas the Sting, I maybe have one shot. I don't hate the Sting by any means, but I really only have I feel confident with a straight or hyzer flip up shot just to go relatively straight with a reliable fade, not a super fade, just a reliable fade. Whereas the Jackalope, that hyzer flip line, hyzer flip to turnover line, I have, if I wanted to give it some extreme hyzer, I probably could get it to finish left if I really wanted it to. And if I want that mid-range, and that's the shot I really want, is the Annie, just that nice sweeping left to right, because I don't have a great forehand. So I need this left to right motion that's not going to cut roll on me. So for that reason, I think Jackalope's the winner for me, Robbie. Now, the interesting thing, even though the Jackalope's the winner for me, you talking about the Crave versus the TL3 and then your Roadrunner,
right?
I don't know, Robbie. I'm going to leave that up to you, being the expert here. I don't know if the Sting might be better for you based on covering multiple shots and maybe replacing multiple molds. So I'll hand that part back over to you, Robbie.
Yeah, I think that the beautiful part about the Jackalope is the Jackalope does come in two plastics as well. It comes with the Apex as well as the Eternal. And I think the Apex is a little flippier than the Eternal. So there's a world where we still replace two molds, but instead of replacing the going this direction towards stability, it's all of a sudden we don't need the Roadrunner because you love the Jackalope and you've got that. So the other side being, I do agree with Brad. I think that if you were looking to move more central, I think the Sting is definitely more widely available. I will say the Jackalope, like we at our local shop cannot keep Jackalopes on the shelf because they are wildly popular.
Yeah, they're great.
So I think really, Kim, we'd leave it up to you. Which one sounds more interesting, and we'd be happy to send it your way.
Okay. Honestly, I mean, Brad just talked up the Jackalope, but I mean, honestly, I'd probably be more interested trying the Jackalope, I think. Just from
now that
his
you
description.
Yeah, and now that Robbie mentioned this is the eternal plastic, the Apex plastic being more understable, definitely going to the right of the graph there into the understability category. I think you're going to love how this feels. Hopefully you will, as much as I did. And it's all about feel for me. And like Robbie said, maybe you can go to the right of the graph there and replace multiple molds that way.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Jackalope, hey, I'm telling you, it's a really cool stamp.
The stamp's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and like what
Fun
sounds
disc.
cooler? Oh yeah, would you just crush on the hole? Oh yeah, I threw a sting.
Sting, yeah.
Okay, yeah, man, that's cool. Like cool. That's like elite and all that Discraft. Woohoo. Or like, yeah, I just crushed that with a Jackalope, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I like the sound of that better.
Yeah. Plus,
that's more fun.
I'll say the same thing, Kim. While he was talking about that Jackalope, I was like, dang, do I need to put a Jackalope on my back? That is tasty. So, yeah, absolutely crushed it, Brad. Appreciate you, man. And Kim, we'll get some details from you, and we'll make sure we get a Jackalope heading your way. Would you be willing to come back and let us know how it flies?
Would love to.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Kim, thank you for coming on today and joining us after the school day for a little podcast in action.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. It was an experience for sure.
Yeah, and shout out to this Kim and all the Kimberlys out there. My favorite name for the female. So
awesome. Well, Kim, we hope you have a fantastic day, and we look forward to having you on a future episode.
All right, appreciate it.
Brad, I'm telling you, man, you just continue to amaze me with you going out, you're trying the disc, you're crushing it, and honestly, your sales pitches are even better the whole time.
Yeah, not intentional, but when you love something, you love it, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of things you love, anything you're loving in the warehouse that's new?
Yeah, so finally, I've said this for like the last 2 weeks. The MVP restock is here. I touched the boxes with my own hands. You will see new MVP stuff coming up this week. We also have additional Tour Series Lunas, Thrashers, Nukes, Zones, a lot of Discraft Tour Series going up, a huge Discraft restock. We're putting more up every day. We're going to have all your needs, wants, and desires there, which is awesome. I saw that Mint Discs shipped me a shipment today. That should be here by Friday when this comes out. I saw that Prodigy sent me a shipment of some new discs that are launching. It should be, I think they're releasing next week, but keep an eye out for those. We got some new Finish Line eras out in the warehouse and up today, which should be there still Friday. So a lot of stuff, Robbie. So go to foundationdisc.com, check it all out there. And if you're in either our Forest location in the retail store or Charleston, South Carolina, if you're in the area, stop by and see those and check them out.
Absolutely. Well, Brad, thankful for you as always. Thankful for Kim coming on and braving the waters and being our first female guest. Hopefully it wasn't terrible. I was super excited to have her on. And if you're a female listening, please message us and let us know, because we would love to have you on as well. We are always looking for new guests, and we do have that link in the description below for you guys to check out. And so we are perusing through trying to find some phenomenal guests to bring on. So looking forward to chatting with each and every one of you. And this sting, here's how we're going to give this sting away. I have an idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
I want to hear, there has been a moment in your life, like a sting that, it stays with you. What is the sickest burn that you've ever had someone throw your way? Like they hit you with a joke and it was like it would, oh man, like the whole room's just like resonating about like, ooh, can't believe it. It stings. We want to hear the sickest burn below. Obviously, keep it family friendly here in the comments, but I want to hear the sickest burn that we're going to hear that and be like, yep, that's going locked in the memory. Next time someone wrongs me on the course, yeah, I'm hitting them with that. So let us know in the comments below.
Hey, one more thing. Public service announcement. I have to do this, okay?
Please do it.
I have to do this.
Yes.
I am aware that I'm saying Photon Zone. Photon Zone is a thing. It's a special UV plastic that switches colors in the sun that Foundation did a few years back. So to the one guy that left a bad comment on Apple Podcasts, I appreciate you. But
Thank you for reviewing.
yeah, thanks for reviewing, but definitely check up Plastic Types from Discraft. It is a real disc. I'm not misspeaking. I'm not combining Discraft and MVP. Yeah. So thank you.
There's a
for
whole
everyone.
video on it
Yeah.
on Foundation's channel. It's one where Trevor had just signed with Dynamic, and they literally write HARP on the front of it.
Yep, exactly.
It's those discs, guys.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm not saying I know a lot, but I do know that it's in my bag. I touch it when I play disc golf. So
It's real.
public service announcement. It is a real thing. So
Awesome.
if we could please put that to bed, I would love that. And we love all of you. Thank you for checking out the podcast and Rant Over.
Brad, would you say that your Photon Zone is good?
It's good, and it's staying in the bag. We'll see you all next week.